In the news this week, imminent closure of the State Animal Resource Centre to have significant impact on WA community, with 60 people losing their jobs. An exclusive interview coming up.
Also tonight, a mixed bag performance. Peter Kennedy's assessment of the Premier's trip to China. And honouring our Anzacs, RSLWA President urges everyone to march for our mates. And later, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Loom and Maliva Thorne.
Good evening. Around 60 people will be losing their jobs as the State Animal Resource Centre is at the final stages of winding up its operations following the state government's funding withdrawal. There are new calls for the Premier and Treasurer Mark McGowan to reconsider the move, with imminent closure of the centre set to have major impact on medical research in Australia and around the globe. Liberal MP David Honey joins us with exclusive new details on the matter. David Honey, thank you for being here. Given that the research facility is shutting very soon, the jobs aren't guaranteed. Will it undermine WA's medical research, affecting the overall health of the community?
No, look, well, as you said, Ivan, we're here outside the State Animal Resource Centre, which is located on land at Murdoch University. And yeah, I mean, we were just actually talking to a staff member, but it appears that none of the staff from this centre, which is being closed by the state government, are going to get jobs with the new proprietor. And just to take your viewers back a little bit on this whole issue, the State Animal Resource Centre is a really important part of medical research right across Australia. You know, I know that people don't like to perhaps think about it, but before you can do any medical research on people, you have to prove that it's safe, and one of the best ways to prove that is using animal analogues and mostly rats and mice. And this centre produces those animals that are used in medical research. Now, they do that, you know, in absolute humane ways and conditions. But, you know, and it's not just any old rat and mice you can pick up on the street. These are pure genetic strains. So what they have is a number of pure genetic strains of different rats and mice and some other animals. And they're used for medical research. Why is that important? If you're going to compare results of medical research, you know, from across Australia and in fact across the world, and that's where this centre provides, has previously provided animals, about 80% of all medical research animals in Australia, but also a significant number overseas. If you're going to compare results between trials for a new cancer drug or the like, then you have to have this exactly identical, not just sort of a bit alike, but identical genetic strains. And that's the highly skilled work that is carried out here. And for example, the development of the cervical cancer vaccine, that was done using mice from the centre here. So, you know, this is an incredibly important centre, and the state government just arbitrarily said they were going to shut it down. You know, we kicked up a noise about that because we said, hang on, you can't just do that. You can't just shut a centre like this down. And it was costing the state a trivial amount of money to keep this centre going, given the important, crucial role it plays in medical research in Western Australia, and in fact globally. And the state government, they eventually said, oh, look, we'll try and find some other buyers. Now, fortunately, that has taken place. But where you started, Ivan, absolutely. You know, none of the staff here, these experienced staff, are in fact going to continue their employment past May this year.
I understand that approximately 60 people will lose their jobs. Is that the case?
Yeah, look, I think it's something like that, Ivan. There's a, you know, but I think in terms of the people, it's about the expertise that those people have. Now, there's a company called Ausgene who are taking it over. Now, you know, thank goodness someone is taking it over, and I you know, I'm certain that Ausgene are a good, reputable organisation. But my great fear with you are privatising this facility. In doing that, you know, that private business just has to make money. So what do? There's going to be a strong likelihood that it'll specialise down to a few of the most profitable areas of production. And that's going to be to the detriment of medical research right across Australia and in fact globally.
What's your pitch to Premier and Treasurer Mark McGowan on the...
Look, I think, for the Premier and the Treasurer, sometimes they need to understand what they're doing. I think, someone in Treasury's just gone through with a red pen and said, cut this, we don't need this. That's the job of the politician. The job of the politician is to step in and say, no, hang on, I know this is important. I know the importance of this to medical research in Australia and internationally. This is an important service. It's not just about, some beanie's bottom line. That's the job of the Premier and Treasurer. I'm very apprehensive that we're going to see a narrowing of the stream of animals provided by this facility, and if that's the case, it'll be to the detriment of the people of Western Australia, and globally.
And you can read the full story available now on the WAMN Extra News Club. David Honey, thank you for being with us this week.
Yeah, thanks.
WA Premier Mark McGowan has returned to Western Australia following his first business trip to China since the pandemic. The week-long trip saw Mr McGowan pitching and strengthening Western Australia's trade opportunities to Chinese senior officials. But the trip wasn't completely smooth, as veteran political commentator Peter Kennedy gives his assessment of the Premier's performance.
Overseas trips by Premiers are designed to promote the state, and they also generate, generally, good news for the Premier of the day. And Mr McGowan's visit to China has been a bit of a mixed bag. Started off very difficult for him with a gaffe, an aside at a lunch about Andrew Hastie, the opposition front bencher, picked up by an open microphone. Unfortunate because it distracted attention. Mr McGowan's an experienced politician and he should be aware of the problems associated with that.
To what I've said publicly. Nothing different to what I've said publicly. What happened under the last Commonwealth government is they had people like Mr Dutton, Mr Hastie, some others there, who would openly talk about war with China. Now that's a nuclear armed superpower. Now I think it's irresponsible to talk about that. I mean, why do people think that's a sensible thing to do? So in my conversation I was talking to some Australian business people, and they're actually Australians who are up there, and they were asking me about how it got so bad, the relationship between Australia and China, and I was explaining some of the people I knew in the former federal government, and some of the former federal government didn't support it.
However, other points he suggested that perhaps Australia's leaders should meet in China, led by Anthony Albanese. Not a bad idea. However, didn't go down too well with the new Labor Premier of New South Wales, Chris Minns, who said, no, that's not a good move at all, and suggesting just throwing his weight around and putting Mr McGowan back in his place. After all, if they're going to be ideas like this, they need to come from the Premier state, as New South Wales calls itself. That would have been behind Mr Minns's attitude on that. On the score of tariffs, Mr McGowan wants tariffs on Australian goods, West Australian goods exported to China dropped. Good move. Let's hope that that bears some fruit. And also a suggestion that a conference, an environment conference, an international environment conference to be held in Perth around the middle of the year. Also a good move. So generally speaking, when you look at Mr McGowan's trip, a mixed bag. Started off a bit hesitantly, and there has been some criticism of premiers perhaps overreaching when they go on overseas trips, and that's come from the national newspaper. So they're saying these are issues for our federal MPs, not for state MPs. But state MPs, state premiers are there to promote the state. That's what Mr McGowan's trip was designed to do. And as I say, a mixed bag. Probably, if you had to mark it out of 10, something like 7 out of 10. Peter Kennedy, WAMN News.
Hi there. Are you looking for a new home or want to refinance your car mortgage to get a better rate? At AA Finance Solutions, we have the expertise and knowledge to help you to find the right loan for your needs and budgets. Contact us today. Let us help you to make your home ownership dream a reality.
AA Finance Solutions, your local mortgage broker.
The McGowan government has released the Your Safety in Our Hands in Hospital report, detailing issues within WA's public hospitals. The lack of frontline health workers continue to underscore the struggle of Perth's public hospital systems, according to the report. The root causes of many adverse events within public hospitals are also due to staff workloads and shortages. Since the Labour government came to power in 2017, the report has highlighted that SAC1 incidents have increased to over 20 and a 10% increase in patient complaints. The Australian Nursing Federation WA Secretary Janet Reyes says the report again highlighted the consequences of staff shortages.
WA Corrective Services Minister Bill Johnston provided an update this week after receiving a briefing on the Banksia Hill Detention Centre incident. According to the briefing notes, the Minister was advised that 4 prison officers, a nurse and 1 detainee were taken to the hospital following unrest at Unit 18. 3 officers and 1 detainee were sent to the hospital due to smoke inhalation. 1 officer was escorted to treatment with a suspected broken arm before he was cleared of any injuries. A nurse was also sent to the hospital after she was sprayed with an unknown liquid as juvenile detainees threw bottles at youth custodial officers. 2 of the officers were back on duty and they did not receive any external medical assessments or treatments.
Police have seized more than 7 kilograms of cocaine and charged 3 more people as part of a continuing operation focusing on a complex cross-border crime syndicate. The operation began in October 2022 when detectives belonging to the Drugs and Firearms Squad started looking into several people. These people were thought to be part of a cross-border money laundering syndicate running between New South Wales and Perth. Police have seized more than 12 kilograms of illicit drugs and $1.8 million in cash as a consequence of the operation. And 5 people also facing several firearm and drug offences.
Western Australians gathered around the state to experience a once-in-a-lifetime historic solar eclipse. WA's Far North Regional Centre, Exmouth, became the place to be to witness a historical event. The regional town and surrounding areas were packed with local residents, tourists and media crews hoping to witness and experience the event. Although Perth experienced a 71% of the solar eclipse, many residents in the metropolitan area were disappointed that there wasn't a significant drop in sunlight. Hundreds of office workers and citizens also gathered at Forest Chase and Yagan Square, hoping to get a glimpse of this rare occasion. Meanwhile, local Liberal MP David Honey handed out solar eclipse eyeglasses to the public at a Cottesloe shopping centre, and most of the glasses were snapped up within 20 minutes of the announcement.
And now here's AMA-WA spokesman Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly medical and news commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. We've just had notification in the last day or two that the Arcturus variant of Omicron is now spreading in Western Australia, and it will spread very rapidly indeed as we head into the flu season. We've had 500 deaths in Australia so far this year in aged care, and we've got about 370 aged care homes affected by outbreaks of COVID at the moment. In one case, 1 staff member having infected 30 people. This is because we're not doing what we need to do in terms of preventing airborne spread. So we need ventilation in these places to get fresh air in there, and we need the staff to be wearing N95 masks all the time to prevent them cross-infecting other people. Unfortunately, those kind of measures are not being mandated by health authorities for reasons which have nothing to do with science and everything to do with politics. So as we head forward, what can we do as individuals? Well, I'm still wearing a mask whenever I'm in a indoor public space, because if I do catch COVID, I want it to be from someone that I love, not because I stopped off to pick up a coffee sometime. I've still been getting on with my life and managing to enjoy it very much, and go out to a lot of places, just being wary about things and not taking unnecessary risks. Of course, we want to socialise with other people like everybody else, but I have elderly relatives who I want to protect, and there's still 5% of people getting this disease and having lingering symptoms at 30 days or longer, and that's a very long time to be unable to work or to study or to get on with life and feel good and enjoy food and so on, and it's just not something that I want as part of my lifestyle. So have an up-to-date booster for COVID and get a flu jab coming into flu season, and think about the quality of the air that you breathe. It's just as important as the food that you eat and the water that you drink. Thanks for your time.
And that was Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. Well, Ivan, how did you find the solar eclipse?
Fascinating. In fact, it's really hard to capture, believe it or not, but we've managed to do it, and it's very fortunate that we can bring this moment to you as well. We'll recap this week's top stories again in just a moment.
But right now, here's Madeline Lombardi with Western Perspective.
Thanks, Ivan and Melly. Welcome to Western Perspective. I'm Madeline Lombardi. With Anzac Day approaching this Tuesday, the 25th of April, WAMN News was fortunate enough to speak with the CEO of RSL WA, Vince Connolly, about the meaning of this day of commemoration. For this year's theme, the RSL is calling on all veterans to march for your mates and for all West Australians to participate in sharing the spirit as part of Anzac Day's message this year.
This year, we're really calling on all veterans to march for your mates. We know from the recent census information that there are 62,000 veterans right here in WA, and 7,000 of those are still serving in the Army, Navy or Air Force. We've got about 9,000 members inside RSL, so we know that there are a lot of veterans who are not as engaged as they may otherwise be within the veteran community, and so it's an invitation to people to get involved. And what we find for veterans is maintaining some form of connection is really healthy, because you're connected to what was a very important part of your service and indeed your life. And the second part of the theme is that we're just calling on all West Australians to come out and participate on Anzac Day and share in the Anzac spirit.
What are some of the unsung heroes, particularly female Army personnel and veterans, that you would like to talk about?
Sure. Well, I'll give some, personal experience. My wife, Peter, she was an intelligence officer in the Australian Army. The same time, I was an infantry officer. So we served right around the country together, and individually sort of overseas as well. So Peter's experience was a fantastic one, very, very positive. Certainly, military service is hard on your body, carrying a lot of heavy equipment in very harsh conditions. But that sort of spirit of being part of a bigger team, Peter's experience has always been very positive, and I think that's something I've also seen and experienced as inside the military is a great deal of respect across men and women. In fact, I would suggest, and I do acknowledge individuals will have different experiences to mine and to my wife's, but certainly ours has been that the military has been a very inclusive workplace, and I think that sets a good example for all workplaces.
Is it true that female veterans have always been underappreciated?
I wouldn't say that. That hasn't been, as I said, the experience that my wife has had, or others who've directly spoken to me. I'm sure there'll be other experiences, but certainly the military has always greatly valued input from women, and indeed they continue to play an extremely important role. A lot of the corps, in fact, all corps now have been opened up for women to be able to serve in them. Which is appropriate, especially given that both Army, Navy and Air Force all have a great requirement to ramp up in terms of staffing levels to meet the geostrategic challenges that Australia faces. And it seems Australia has changed so much when it comes to the kind of people that are in the Army. I mean, apart from just 100 years ago, we have all men, most of them are men, but now it is a mix of racial and also gender as well. Do you see that a more equivalent future when it comes to Army personnel, those people serve in the Army? It's a great question, and imminently, we don't have a fixed date, but we know that very soon the government will release the Defence Strategic Review, and what we can expect is that will highlight and I suppose reinforce some of what came out very recently in the Defence Strategic Update, explaining that yes, Australia faces some very different and very significant geostrategic challenges. What that means is that we need to be prepared to deter but also to respond. And that means that we're going to have capabilities that we haven't traditionally had, things like long-range precision strike, things like underwater capabilities, including submarines, but also unmanned underwater vessels as well. Even the digital battle space has become so complex that, yes, we absolutely need people with skill sets that aren't necessarily on the battlefield in shooting roles. We need people who are excellent in the cyberspace. We need people who are wonderful at programming and all sorts of other skills.
Just very quickly, what about young people? What do you think they understand what ANZAC is about this year?
Part of, I suppose, the role of RSL is not just to support veterans and their families, but also to be able to connect with and share the ANZAC spirit throughout our whole community. So that's why right throughout Western Australia we've got over 100 different services. And if anyone's interested, please jump on the rslwa.org.au website. All of the services are listed there. And the reason it's important that we keep that ANZAC spirit alive is because those values of mateship, of love of your nation and of self-sacrifice and service are actually important for our entire community. And certainly with some of the challenges that our nation faces and will face into the future, that acknowledgement that as a country we are bigger than just the individual and that sometimes we do have to serve and to sacrifice and to support national effort is one that is a timeless message, and we seek to share that ANZAC spirit, particularly on ANZAC Day.
And do you believe that it will continue to be serving as an important part of nationalism and patriotism?
Look, I do believe that the ANZAC spirit and those ideals of mateship, service and national pride are relevant absolutely for the whole community. And it's wonderful that, as you say earlier, young people get extremely involved on ANZAC Day. We've had our children raising the flag on ANZAC Day ceremonies and participating in gunfire breakfasts and events throughout the day. And of course the marches that occur, because it really does help remind us on the one hand that we have always and will always need men and women who are prepared to defend the nation, but that also our own contribution to our communities locally and our society is one which considers what we do for other people as well.
That was RSL WA CEO Vince Connolly. You can read our weekly premium news stories on the WAMN Extra News Club, supporting independent local news and keeping democracy strong. And now here's Leo Puglisi with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys. On 6 News, multi-billion-dollar defence programs could be wound back or scrapped entirely, with the most significant military review in years to be released tomorrow. Tributes flowing across the world for Australian entertainment icon Barry Humphries, who's died at the age of 89. And the number of MPs in the federal parliament could rise, with Labor open to increasing the amount of politicians. Watch live on our YouTube channel and our website, 6newsau.com.
Thanks a lot to the team at 6 News. And that's all from Western Perspective this week. We'll be back next Sunday. Until then, Ivan and Melly, it's back to you two.
Thanks, Maddie. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website, wamnnews.com.au.
Don't forget to subscribe to the WAMN Extra News Club so we can continue our work in the community. Full details on wamnnews.com.au/news/extra. From Melly and myself, we wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for watching.